Hello, welcome back to Strategic Success Conference. My name is Ikwagigwe and I am equally excited to welcome you to this fourth section where we're looking at the second strategy on being strategic with our success in 2018. Previously, we looked at the first strategy, which is focusing on what really matters. So, in this session, we're going to be looking at acknowledging your resources as a strategy in achieving success in this year 2018. One of the hallmarks of being strategic for me is in recognizing what you have. Having a strategy simply means for me the way I am going to recite the alphabet from A to Z without skipping a letter. I'm going to do this by singing, whether by saying it or by humming it or by reciting it with what each alphabet stands for. So these several options are my resources. So a lot of people today do not acknowledge their resources to be resources. I find this abysmal trend, usually among young people, to be alarming. I have come across several young people who disregard what they have in search of what they do not have, failing to realize that the key to get what they don't have lies in what they have, no matter how small or insignificant they might seem. So I am going to ask you now, what resources do you have? You, what do you have in your hands? Resources are your time, your money, people, tools, talents, products, etc. So, what resources do you have? I'm going to ask them to you. So, and to answer this question, I expect you to list them out. List out your resources. And you realize that you have not paid attention to them because they do not appear to hold the key out of your present predicament. For example, the money you have does not appear to be enough to start a business. But do you know it can start a lesser business with which you can, with a lesser business that can still yield a legitimate profit for you, or it can pull up with another person's money to raise what you need. So look at what you have in your hand. The truth is, inside whatever you have, no matter how small, no matter how insignificant it is, inside it, within it, lies the key that will take you to the next level of your life. So, what I'm saying is that everything you have listed out that you have is all you need to succeed. For this year, find out what you have. That is the key to your success. The question is, how strategic can I be with what I have? But you can't answer this question if you do not first of all acknowledge what you have already. So acknowledge what you have, identify them, then begin to ask yourself the pertinent question of how strategic can I be with these resources? We're going to look at a scripture in Matthew chapter 9, in Matthew chapter 15, verse 29 to 39. It's a long scripture, so I'm just going to paraphrase or give us a background of what the story is about. The story is about, we find a scenario where Jesus was faced with a crowd of about 4,000 hungry men, you know, and he needed to feed them. So this is also the same scenario that you might have found yourself in presently. You might be in that same scenario right now. You are faced with another 12 months to live up to your responsibilities and to your commitments, or you are faced with the challenge of finding a confluence for your excitement and your expectations. So, what did Jesus do here? Because it is in what he did that we can learn and find a way out of where we are to where we need to be. So Jesus focused on and acknowledged his resources. If you look at that scripture, he focused on his resources. He asked his disciples, how much food do you have? You know, when they came to him and said that these people are hungry, they need to be fed. And they are so much that even if we spend a year's wage, we can't have enough money to buy food for them. In other words, they did not have money. They were broke at that point. But Jesus had to draw their mind back to what they have. You know, The disciples focused on the money they didn't have, but Jesus drew their attention back to the bread which they have. Because Jesus asked them, how much bread do you have? What quantity of bread do you have? What do you have in your hand? He realized that there is bread, but he wanted to know how many of it do they have. He brought the attention back to what they have, not on the money which they did not have. You know, so Jesus drew the attention back to the bread which with them, and it was from this bread that the entire multitude was fed, and they still had much that was left over. So, what do you have in your hands? There lies your gold. What you have with you presently, the resources you have, if you begin to acknowledge them, your gold will begin to manifest. Your resources is a missing link between your excitement and your expectation. So I'm gonna leave this open for discussion. I'm gonna leave this open for us to discuss in the comment section. So let's discuss it. How can my resources lead me out of where I am to where I need to be? Because you can't convince me otherwise that what you have in your hand, that God has already given you or deposited within you what you need to move out of where you are to where you need to be, because Jesus practiced the same thing. The woman that needed to pay the debts, the prophet asked her, what do you have? And she said, just a cruse of oil. You know, the blessing, the multiplication came from what she had, not from what she did not have. So no matter how you're going to look at it, the number two strategy to be strategically successful this year is in focusing on your resources. What do you have? So let's discuss this before we move on to the next session, where we're going to discuss on being strategic with principles. Thank you for being part of this session. I know and I believe strongly in my heart that value is being added to you. So I need your feedback. I need you to get back to me. Let's discuss. Let me know how this has blessed you. Leave me a comment in the comment section so that we'll take it further from there. Thank you for staying put. Anticipate the fifth session where we're going to look at being strategic with principles. Thank you for staying by.